Hello and welcome to another episode of the BSN podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 31st. Hope everybody's having a good day so far here today and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, August 31st, the last day of August. I know not officially the last day of summer, but usually once August ends, it usually feels, it's not really summer anymore. You do have Labor Day weekend coming up, but it is August 31st. A lot of sports on last night, a lot of good baseball action. The New York Yankees get the win 7-4. Much needed win for the Yankees. Again, you won the first two in Oakland, you lost the next two, then you lost on Monday night. It wasn't looking good. Bats were really struggling. The pitching was all right. It was Montez wasn't great on Monday. And then you go to Tuesday last night, and you're like, all right, we need to get a win. Yankees step up, get some big at-bats, make some, got a lot of big hits. Judge hits his 51st home run. So now Judge is only 10 home runs away from tying Roger Maris's record and 11 away from beating his record of 61 home runs. So I think Judge will get 62. I'm not exactly sure how much he's on pace for, but he's going to get it. He's at 50 right now. I think he's going to get it. I think he's at least going to hit 60. There's no way. That's just my opinion. I don't want to touch the money too much. I don't want to jinx it, but it looks as if, knock on wood, everything's going well right now. It looks as if he'll get there. I think he will. So his, historic season, his historic chase for the home run record continues last night. So the Yankees get the win, much needed victory. And look, this is the great thing about baseball. Today you get a win. You got a win streak, number one, and number two, you win the series. So that whole bad taste out of your mouth, you kind of get the bad taste out of your mouth from the Angels and the Oakland. You go 4-3 in those 7 games, not phenomenal, but you win the series and you go to Tampa, which will be a big series. And right now, this is a big series for the Yankees because the division lead right now, you can't go into Tampa with the division lead shrinking and lose 2 or 3 there, then you're really in trouble. So a good win last night for the Yankees. They'll look to do it again today. The final game tonight the final game tonight that isn't going to go until midnight. Yankees-Angels tonight. This is the final game of the season on the during this time where the games are on at 9:30 Eastern. Now, World Series, if you get there, Dodgers, if you got to play them, times might be a little different. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's the World Series. So, Yankees tonight, game 2, or game 3 of the 3-game set, final game. Mets took the loss last night, 4-3 against the Dodgers. Dodgers are now 26 games away, or 26 wins away from beating the record for wins. They were first to 90 wins last night. They're now, I think they have 32 games left. They need to go 26-32, I think, tie the 116 record of most wins. And if they want to beat it, I guess they need to go 27-5. So they're going to have to go do really well. But the Dodgers are a very good team. We all know what the Dodgers are. And again, I've continued to say, the National League is going to run through LA. If you want to win the National League pennant, if you want to win and you go to the World Series, you're going to have to get through LA. Same thing with the Yankees and Houston. It's going to go through Houston. The National League is going to go through LA, and the American League is going to go through Houston. That's how it is. So the Yankees and the Mets both are going to have to find ways to win games on the road, it seems, in the postseason if they get deep into it. So Yankees tonight, final game of 3-game set against the Angels. Mets, game 2 of a 3-game set against the Dodgers. They'll look to get this dub tonight. So then they'll set up the series, they'll set up the rubber game tomorrow. We will see how that plays out. All right, so topics for today's podcast. A lot to get to today on the show. Another big football day. You know the drill. I started yesterday. I gave you my AFC East predictions. Today I'm going to give you my NFC East predictions. Tomorrow we'll start the North and we'll go AFC North, NFC North, so on and so forth. You know it. So today we'll give you my NFC East projections where the Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, and Giants will finish this season. The standings, their floor, their ceiling, my prediction, and the playoff teams coming out of that division. Then we'll get to the Jets and Giants roster cuts and their 53-man roster. I'm going to break it down. Jets, some very interesting roster moves yesterday from the New York Jets. And just some very, very odd moves, the safety position especially. So I'm going to get into it. I'm not going to crush Douglas, but yesterday was a pretty frustrating day as a Jet fan, seeing some of these guys get cut that probably should not have gotten cut. We'll also get to the Giants and a couple surprising cuts there as well. I think more surprises on the Jet side than the Giants side, but we'll talk about it and we'll get into it. Then we'll finish things off, like I mentioned, with the New York Sports Update. And, as always, Yankees tonight, Mets as well. So, a lot to look forward to tonight We are now 11 days away, right? I believe 11 days away from the first Sunday football. And tomorrow is 1 week from tomorrow. You got Bills, Rams, Thursday Night Football to kick off the 2022 NFL season. So it's right upon us, right in front of us, or Boone, right? It's right in front of us. It's right there, and then, then that Sunday, you got football on all day, Monday football, and then you get into the groove of the season, and it should be exciting. So a lot to get to today on the podcast. With all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get into it. So yesterday I gave you my AFC East predictions. Today I'm going to give you my NFC. So I'm going to bounce back and forth, go AFC, NFC. So tomorrow I'll do the North for the AFC, and then we'll finish up on Friday with the NFC North. Then we'll go to the NFC South, or AFC South, then the NFC South, and then Wednesday will be AFC West, and then Thursday will be NFC West. So that will be the wrap for it. So this is kind of this 8-day thing that I'm doing here, covering all of the 4 divisions in each of the leagues, all 8 divisions total, 4 in each. And we're going to end, started it yesterday, ending it on Thursday, which will be the first game, so it kind of lines up perfectly there. So today I'm going to give you my NFC East predictions. So last year in the NFC East, Cowboys finished in first at 12-5, Eagles finished in second at 9-8, Commanders finished in third at 7-10, and the Giants finished in last at 14-13. So out of the teams, 2 of them made the playoffs. Cowboys got to the postseason at 12-5, Eagles got to the postseason at 9-8, and the Commanders and the Giants both missed the postseason. Commanders going 7-10, Giants going 4-13. So 2 teams last year came out of this division. And the NFC East, I got to admit, yesterday or Monday, when I do, so after the show, I sometimes get prepared for the next show, the next day. Again, sports sometimes are hard to do that because, it's always, things are always happening. But knowing that I had this topic set up, I got kind of prepared after I did the podcast yesterday, uploading and stuff. I started to get the notes ready for the next day and started to get my standings ready. And I had to admit, I had to do the 3rd and 4th place standings first of who's going to finish 3rd and who's going to finish 4th, because the 1st and 2nd between the Eagles and the Cowboys are so tight to me. It's just it's going to be a very close division. Because again, history tells us if you win the division past years or last year, you're not going to win it the next year. There has not been a repeat division winner in the NFC East in forever. It's the weirdest division in football. Number one, why in the world are the Cowboys in the NFC East when they're not even on the East Coast? Why are they there? I don't know. And then every year it's a different winner. The one year you had the 7-9 Washington team win it. It's just such a weird division. So it's so hard to predict. It's very hard. It's going to be interesting, but we'll start things off here. So again, Cowboys, Eagles were your playoff teams last year. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to start off. I think the Eagles finish in first. I do. Because, again, when you look at the 2 rosters, I think the Eagles got a lot better. I like the Eagles a lot. I like a lot what they're building. And again, I was a big I made fun of a lot of Nick Sirianni. I did not think he was the guy. I thought when they hired him and they fired Doug Peterson, I wasn't so much anti-Doug Peterson firing. I understood why, especially the way things went down in that Week 17 game where he put Nate Sudfeld out there. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it was kind of a rough end. And I understand Super winning coach and all that stuff, but they just weren't winning under him. I kind of understood the decision. To bring in Nick Sirianni, I did not understand. And look, Nick Sirianni's a good coach. I mean, he led the team to a 9-8 record last year. He's a good coach. He's very unique. He does things very interesting, showing the guys a picture of a flower, showing them how photosynthesis works and how everything needs to work together, playing rock, paper, scissors with his draft prospects, guys that they were looking at in the draft to see how competitive they were. I mean, if that's true, he does things unique, very odd. Not your typical head coach showing a picture of a flower and telling them how photosynthesis works and then saying, oh, this is how, we got to work as a team. If that's true, it's weird. It's very weird. His coaching style is very interesting, and I didn't buy into it. But he had a very good year last year, 9-8, and the roster got so much better. They added A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts is getting better. You automatically have to know that. Like, Jalen Hurts is getting better. Devontae Smith, going to get better. Dallas Goedert's had a very good camp. Miles Sanders, as long as he stays healthy. Your offensive line's older, but you still got some pieces up there. They just, got Sean Gardner, and then they also got Darius Slay in the secondary. They got a lot of very good pieces. I really like this Eagles team. I think they're a very good team. I think they got a very good roster, and they're going to be fun to watch this year. When I look at this Eagles team, the difference between the Cowboys and why I have the Cowboys finishing in second, the Eagles got better. You can't say that about the Cowboys. So I think the Eagles this season will finish in first. Now the records, I think their floor is 9-8. They got a couple stuff, tough, kind of could be either way games. If they don't go, if the ball doesn't bounce their way in those games, they could fall to 9-8. But I don't think much worse than that. I don't think this is a team where the wheels are going to fall off and they're going to get their doors blown off every week. I don't foresee that happening. I think 9-8 is their floor. Their ceiling, again, this might be a little over the top, but again, when you're going off of ceilings for NFL teams, they're supposed to be a little crazy because that's kind of the best they can get. I have their ceiling at 13-4. I could see it at 12-5, but I have it at 13-4. Again, there's a couple games on that schedule that could go either way. If, ball bounces their way, if in overtime the coin toss goes their way, they could win a couple of those games. Things could happen, a penalty here and there. That's kind of how you got to gauge ceilings. And I like this Eagles roster. They got better. You can't really say that about any of the other teams in the NFC East. You really can't. The Eagles got better. You can't say that about the Cowboys, and I don't want to really reveal who's 3rd and 4th just yet. So Eagles there, floor 9-8, ceiling 13-4. My actual prediction is they win the division, and their record, they go 12-5. So my second place team is the Cowboys. Again, Eagles got better. You can't say it about the Cowboys. Cowboys lost Amari Cooper. Tyrone Smith is injured. They think, they feel optimistic, but who knows that the age he is, this, and I mean this in a positive way, being an offensive line, it takes some time to recover at the size, some of the size of these guys. So you don't know how long Tyrone Smith's going to be out. He might be out for the year. It's bad when they're looking to try to trade for Chuma Edoga from the Jets, who's awful, ended up getting cut because they couldn't find a trade partner. Again, I like the Cowboys. I like Dak Prescott. They got two very good running backs in Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Especially Pollard, they like a lot in the receiving game, so you wonder if maybe he can try to make up a little bit for the loss of Amari Cooper. You do have CeeDee Lamb and you have Michael Gallup as your two main guys. And again, I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. Michael Gallup I like, but these guys hurt. He's hurt all the time. Can you trust him to stay healthy? Your offensive line's an issue with the health and overall the talent. You got two very solid running backs, but you did lose your number one receiver, and you're relying on your number two receiver to go out there and play at a high level, and he hasn't been healthy. So there are a lot of injury concerns around this roster, around this Cowboys team. They finished 12-5 this year. They lost last year, obviously, against the Niners in the wild card game. The dumb cube quarterback sneak with, under like 20 seconds to go. We all know how that ended up playing out. Again, I like Prescott. The defense has got some nice pieces after Dan Quinn took over. Very nice. Michael Parsons, solid. Trayvon Diggs, I know he's got to work a little bit in coverage, but he had a lot of interceptions. Their defense is going to force turnovers. They got a solid group on defense. For the first time in a long time, my concern with this Cowboys team is on the offense. That's how I see it. Again, defense is solid. Got a good coordinator for the first time and forever. I like their defense. Their offense, can you trust Gallup to stay healthy? This offensive line's a massive question mark. I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. I think CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be a true number one threat. I loved him coming out of college, out of Oklahoma. Really like him, in the NFL. He's going to become a threat. I think he's officially going to explode because he's going to get a ton of targets. Like Dak, like the running game. But there's a lot of questions. When you ask yourself, did the Cowboys truly get better? I don't think so. The Eagles got better. Can't say it about the Cowboys. So I think that's why you go 1 with the Eagles, 2 with the Cowboys. My floor for the Cowboys is 9-8. If things really go bad, I think it could get down to 8-9, but I'm going to roll with 9-8. I think their ceiling is 12-5. Again, if things go right, Gallup stays healthy. I know he's hurt to start, but if he comes back fine, good, healthy, about CeeDee Lamb, if he plays the way he is, if the offensive line stays intact, if things go right, Cowboys are a good team. They have talent. It's just there's so many question marks, and I guess there's more question marks maybe than talent. And some of the talent, there's question marks about the health. So if things go right, their ceiling could be 12-5. Overall, though, I do have the Cowboys at 11-6. I could see them going 10-7, depending on how the rest of the NFC plays out. They might find a playoff spot at the number 2 spot. We'll see. But Cowboys, 11-6. Again, could be 10-7, but I'm going to go with 11-6 here and finish the game behind the Eagles. Again, Eagles got better. Can't say that so much about the Cowboys. All right, so my third place team in the NFC East is the Washington Commanders. And the reason, and that would be leaving the Giants to last. And I want, before you Giant fans get angry at me, let me explain why the Giants are in last, and I'll do that here in a second. But let me talk about the Commanders here first. Look, the Commanders this season went out and got Wentz. They added that to a group of, Curtis Samuel, TJ McLaurin. He's got some, solid running backs like Antonio Gibson, McKissick, all those guys. Their offensive line's all right. You look at their defense, Chase Young obviously being kind of the headline guy. I like Ron Rivera a lot as a coach. Very good in Washington, or very good in Carolina. I know the one year he led them to a 7-9 playoff berth, but he was good he led them to a playoff spot. Again, I like the Commanders and some of their pieces that they have. I like Antonio Gibson a lot. I think Jahan Dotson's got a bright future. I think, you look at Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. There's a lot of guys on this roster. Logan Thomas, that was a quarterback, turned into a tight end. There's a lot of talent on this. There's definitely some talent. Maybe not the top of the line biggest names, but there's some talent on this roster that can make plays. And I just don't know if, and obviously you look at, Montez Sweat being a guy, Chase Young being kind of some of your headlines guys, on that defensive front there. I like some of the talent on this Washington team. My biggest concern, and again, I talked about it yesterday with Miami. What did I say about Miami? They got talent. They don't have the quarterback. That's what I think about Washington. They got talent. I mean, geez, they got 3 solid receivers and they got a good running back room. And you got, you look at the receiver core, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. Young guys. Those guys are going to make plays, right? Running back room as well. Gibson, McKissick, all those guys in that running back room, all going to make plays. You go to the secondary. Or go to the defense. Montez Sweat, Chase Young, going to force a lot of pressure. They have, and especially when they're going up against Cowboys. Cowboys don't have a great offense line. They're going to get a lot of pressure on them. The Commanders have the talent. The Dolphins do as well, but I said it yesterday. Dolphins have the talent, they don't have the quarterback. I don't think the Commanders have the quarterback. What is Carson Wentz? Carson Wentz is no longer Carson Wentz. He's not the guy anymore. He was good in Philly, struggled. Ever since that torn ACL, he has not been the same quarterback. Was all right last year in Indianapolis. Obviously, the last week of the season against Jacksonville, I think, really kind of set the tone of we got to get rid of this guy. They brought in Matt Ryan. Commanders bring in Wentz. You could say, oh, he's upgrade over Heineke, but is that good enough? I'm not trying to make fun of Heineke, not trying to be negative, but okay, that's great. You're upgrade over Heineke. There's a lot of upgrades over there over Taylor Heineke. So my biggest thing with this Commanders team is what's holding them back is the quarterback. Again, Dolphins have a lot of talent. They don't have the quarterback, in my opinion. Commanders, the Washington have a ton of talent. They don't have the quarterback. So I think the Commanders are going to finish in third, rather. I think their floor is 6-11. I do think their ceiling, though, and I tell you this. This is kind of one of the biggest fluctuations between floor and ceiling. I think the Commanders' ceiling's 10-7. I think they could get the 10 wins if Wentz plays like the way he did in Philly or close to that. I do. Because if that's the case, you got all the weapons. You got all of them. And your defense is solid. If your quarterback plays good, this could be a team that can make some noise in the NFC. I just don't believe it. Same thing with Miami. Miami, if Tua plays well, they can make some noise. I just don't think it's going to happen. So if the Commanders play well, their schedule has some, spots in it where they can make up some games. They could beat some teams if Wentz plays well. This Commanders team could get up to 10 wins if everything goes right. But my ultimate prediction is they're going to go 7-10. I could see 8-9. There's a couple games again that could go either way. I could see them at 8-9. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to go with 7-10 for the Commanders. And again, they're going to go into an offseason, I think, where they're still going to be looking for that quarterback. That's my biggest thing. So Commanders finishing in third. And my last place team is the New York Giants. Okay, and again, if you're a Giant fan, don't crush me. Let me speak on this, and I'll give you the record, give you their ceiling, all that stuff. I like Dable. I like Joe Shane. I think they're two very, very, very good GMs and coaches. I like what the Giants are doing. I like what they're building. Brought in Evan Neal. Brought in Kayvon Thibodeau. I like the addition of Wan'Dale Robinson in the draft as well out of Kentucky. They got some talent. If Saquon stays healthy, he's one of the best running backs in all football. Azeez Ojulari, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams. They got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. Dory Jackson. They have talent. Again, the biggest thing holding back is Daniel Jones. The Giants are where the Jets were last season. I think this is where Giant fans have to understand this. The Giants are where the Jets were last season. Jets last season, new regime, new coaching staff. Obviously the same GM with Douglas. Giants brought in a different GM, obviously getting rid of Gettleman, or Gettleman retired, but he was gone either way. He was terrible. Again, they are where the Jets were last season. I can't stress that enough. The Jets last year won 4 games. They had a lot of young guys play. There was a lot of growing pains, and it was a lot of seeing what pieces fit, seeing what pieces don't fit, and then after this year, you really start to build the foundation. Or I should say this year's really starting to build a foundation of, who you got, who you don't got, who's going to be on this team long term, who's not, who's a guy that you might bring in next year and see if he can compete for a spot. What you're going to do in the draft. You're going to get your answer at quarterback. I think we all kind of know what the answer is, but you're officially going to get your answer at quarterback after this year, which is the biggest thing. Giants are where the Jets were last season. It's not going to be as painful as last year, I'll tell you that, for Giant fans, because you're going to have, you got the coach, you have the GM, they're doing the right things. You're not relying on Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman. But they are where the Jets were last season. There's going to be growing pains. There's also going to be there's going to be a lot of highs. You might see games like the Jets had last year against Tennessee, where they go out and win and beat a very good team. There's going to be a lot of inconsistency too. I think they'll win more games than the Jets did last year, just because I think their roster's a little bit better than what the Jets were last season. That's how I see it. But again, I don't think the Giants have the quarterback. That's my biggest thing. And again, in the NFL, if you don't have the quarterback, you're not going to win games. You can't stress that enough. You're not going to win games if you don't have the quarterback in the NFL. All the good teams, they have quarterbacks. The bad teams don't have the quarterback. So I have the Giants finishing last. Again, I don't think it's going to be a miserable season where Giants fans are calling for Dable's head. It's not going to be a 3-win year. I think they're going to be better than last year. But it's going to be a growing season. And you're going to need, and you, again, Daniel Jones is still your quarterback. Do you truly trust Jones? So I think the Giants finishing last. I think their floor is 5-12. If it really gets bad, it could get back to 4-13. I don't foresee that, though. Their floor is 5-12. Their ceiling 7-10. I could see the Giants getting up to the 7-win mark. There's a couple games on here. The Giants are going to make a lot of their money this year during this stretch of the season when they play the Jaguars, Seahawks, Texans, and Lions. 4 straight games. That's when they're going to make a lot of their money, is those 4 games. 4 games. You should easily go at least 3-1 in those 4 games. Maybe you lose to, the best team out of them is probably Detroit. If anything, you lose to Detroit. If anything, that's the case. I mean, that is at home, and you're home for 2 of those games. So, or if Geno Smith lights it up in Seattle, and you got to go on the road there, long trip, maybe them, just because of everything else involved. But you're going to automatically should have 4 wins there. The Jets last year, when you looked at their schedule, they didn't have that luxury of finding 4 games on their schedule where it's like, those got to be wins. So for the Giants, that's why I don't see them at 4-13. That's why I probably see them their floor at 5-12, because they got those 4 games. They're ceiling 7-10, because they then got to find a way to win 3 more games. Whether that's maybe beating a Carolina team, whether it's maybe upsetting a team like Indianapolis, maybe beating the Eagles or somebody like that, getting a division upset, maybe they could get to 7 wins. My prediction, though, is Giants will finish 6-11 and in last place. Again, it's going to be improvement, but it's going to be a growing year. I mean, that's where they are in the rebuild. Not a bad thing, because they're building the foundation, which other organizations don't do very much, which the Giants haven't done very much. They're laying the foundation, and next year, really, most likely with a new quarterback. My prediction is, 6-11, Daniel Jones is going to be a quarterback. Again, if Daniel Jones wants to be the quarterback, he's got to lead the Giants to a playoff berth. That's how good he's got to be. Because not only does he have to make up for the years he struggles, he has to prove it to a coach that never brought him in. So, if he wants to be a quarterback next year, he's got to lead the Giants to at least 9-10 wins. It's the truth. So, 6-11, Giants will finish. That's my prediction. So again, NFC's predictions: Eagles 12-5, Cowboys 11-6, Commanders 7-10, Giants 6-11. Eagles make the playoffs. I can very well see the Cowboys doing that as well. The way the rest of the NFC plays out is kind of how I see it. The NFC, unlike the AFC, the AFC is tough because you're going to probably get 3 teams out of the AFC West. You're going to get the Bills out of the AFC East. That's 4 teams. AFC North, you're probably going to get 2. Then the AFC is really tough because the NFC, not as much. The NFC, you're going to see a lot more kind of 2 teams in each division. You look at the AFC. Again, this is why I think the Cowboys, even though they finished second, still have a good opportunity of making the postseason in here. Again, once the rest of my NFC playoff predictions play out and division predictions play out, I'll really get into it there with who's going to make the playoffs and really not. But the NFC, you have that luxury where you can go 9-8 and squeak in. You can. In the NFC. AFC, not going to be the case because, look, every division at least has one team that makes it. So that's automatically 4. You need 3 other teams. I personally think you're going to get 3 teams out of the AFC West. That's 3. You're going to get 2 teams out of the AFC North. Bengals and Ravens, most likely. That's 5. Now you got 1 from the AFC West and 1 from the AFC South. AFC's tough. It's really tough. 2 divisions might have 5 playoff teams coming out of it. That's why, NFC have that luxury where, Cowboys could still go. You could get a team in the AFC that might go 10-7, 11-6, and miss the playoffs. It's possible, just because of how good it is. So, we'll see how this plays out, but that is my NFC standings. Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants. Eagles going 12-5. Cowboys going 11-6. Commanders going 7-10. Giants finishing last at 6-11. And again, out of all these teams, who's the most improved? It's the Eagles. I like Jalen Hurts a lot. He's going to continue to get better. They improved a ton. They just made a move the other day getting Gardner Johnson. Eagles got a good team. They are the most improved. They're 9-8 last year. I think they're really going to skyrocket this year, win 12 games and get it. So that's my NFC East predictions. Tomorrow, we'll go to the North. We'll leave the East, go to the North, do the AFC North. My AFC North predictions tomorrow, which is going to be fun. Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Steelers. That's going to be a fun division. AFC North's always fun. Very gritty, tough, fun division. So we'll go to that tomorrow, and an NFC North to wrap up the week, and then next week we'll go South and West to finish things off. All right, so now moving on here from our division predictions, we're going to get to the cuts. So yesterday, the NFL 4 p.m. deadline to make your roster cuts for all of the 30 NFL teams to make your roster cuts. Yesterday are not 30 NFL teams. Jeez, I'm all over the place. Out of all the 32 NFL teams to make their roster cuts yesterday, every team had to make their cuts, and we saw a lot of good from. Let me get this up here. All right, so out of all of the NFL teams, sorry, I just wanted to get my notes up here. So out of all the 32 NFL teams yesterday, by the 4 p.m. deadline, you need to get your cuts in. So they need to get to 80 to 70 or to 53. So that was 27 cuts that they needed to get done yesterday for each of these teams. And again, some of these guys will play. Some of these guys won't ever play again. It's interesting. You'll see how it all plays out. And obviously today, over the next 24 to 48 hours, you're still going to see a lot of moves being made. You're going to see a lot of waiver claims. You might see a couple trades. You might see a couple moves here and there. So the things aren't set and finalized. This is kind of just what the 53-man roster looks like coming out of it. And I'm going to start with the Jets. Given that I just got done talking about the Giants and the NFC East projections, I'm going to start with the Jets. The Jets yesterday, and again, I'm not going to sit here and crush Joe Douglas just because of the fact that he cut some guys and made some questionable decisions. Definitely, I'm not going to sit here and crush him for it. But I am going to sit here and criticize him. And like I said, crushing him meaning he should be done, he stinks. I'm not going to do that. But yesterday the Jets made some interesting cuts. And, it's very frustrating when you see guys that you feel like really earned your roster spot don't make the team. And I'm going to start with the safety position yesterday for the Jets. Because you go to the offense, Chris Trevor gets cut. He'll forever be a Jet legend. No surprise there. There wasn't crazy surprises on the offense. Other than running back Tevin Coleman getting cut, I think was a little bit of a surprise. Ty Johnson making the roster was a surprise. I think it was a surprise to see them not really have a backup tackle other than Max Mitchell, who you really can't trust being a rookie in the later rounds, backing up a guy coming off of an injury and backing up a guy that is much older. So there's a lot of things there with George Font and Dwayne Brown. You're backing up a guy that just turned 37 and a guy that's, have some injury history as well. So, just coming off an injury. So there's a lot of questions there with the Jets offensive line depth. They held on to 4 linebackers. I'm not complaining who they held on to because they got rid of Najruddin. I think Sherwood was better than Najruddin, but it does make it interesting. Defensive line, why did they keep Shepard? I don't know. Vinny Curry as well. They released some young guys that could maybe be a part of the team for much longer other than guys that maybe are just going to be here for a year. Your cornerback's interesting too because they got rid of Isaiah Dunn and Javelin Guidry, so the Jets don't have a backup slot corner, which is interesting. Very interesting to say the least. And Justin Hardy, they're only rolling with 5 corners. Because, yeah, Justin Hardy on paper is a 6th corner, but he doesn't play corner. He's a special teams guy. So they're only rolling with 5 corners, and they don't have a backup slot corner because they cut Guidry. So that's a little questionable there, too. Again, they took the special teams over the actual corner. I don't know. It's interesting. Now you're relying on Michael Carter, who's good, but he's got to stay healthy. Because if he doesn't stay healthy, you don't have a backup slot corner. Unless if Guidry catches onto the practice squad, which we don't know. We'll see today how that all plays out. My biggest issue yesterday with the New York Jets and what Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and the coaching staff did was the safety position. Again, cornerback, there's some questions. There's almost questions everywhere. I'll be positive. Running back was a positive. I was glad to see Zonovan Knight make the team. Yes, Tevin Coleman, that's a question. But I was glad to see Zonovan Knight make the team. He earned it. Tight end as well. Glad to see Lawrence Cager make the team. Glad to see that. He earned his spot. Came into bulked up in the offseason, realized that, look, my future with this team is not going to be as a receiver. If I want to play with this team, I got to turn into a tight end. He did. He came in, definitely on the roster bubble, most likely on the outside looking in, put together a great camp, made the roster. He earns every bit of that. So there is some positives. But the negative is the safety and the secondary in general, but we have to go to the safeties here. What are the Jets doing? I don't understand getting rid of Will Parks and Jason Pinnock to keep Tony Adams, undrafted free agent. I get it. Feel-good story. Out of Illinois, undrafted free agent. Saleh said he put together a good camp. I didn't see much of his number get called while I was at camp, and I haven't seen much of it over, following the beat reporters and stuff report live every day from camp. And they cut Jason Pinnock and Will Parks over Tony Adams, undrafted free agent out of Illinois, and Ashton Davis, who's shown you nothing in 2 years with the team other than a bunch of missed tackles and terrible routes and terrible angles to guys in the open field. That's concerning. And I truly feel bad for Will Parks. I do. You always have to feel for all the guys that get cut because they put in all the work. At the end of the day, it's a business. It is what it is. I mean, it's a business. I don't want to sound harsh, but it is. It's a business. You're not going to hold 80 guys during a year. You're not going to hold 90 players during a season. But I feel for Will Parks because he came in last year on the Jets and played 3 games, was solid for those 3 games, made some plays at the safety position, and they brought him back this offseason. He did everything they needed him to do. Came in, had a good camp, playing well, had a couple really big hits in the preseason, and yet he gets cut. Jason Pinnock, who got some reps with the first team, gets cut over Tony Adams, undrafted free agent, that really hasn't, in my opinion, hasn't shown a ton of camp. Saleh said he did, but I didn't see much of him. And Ashton Davis, who Saleh said yesterday his whole body of work's better than Will Parks and Jason Pinnock. Really? Why wasn't Ashton Davis getting run with the first team then? It just doesn't make sense to me. That was really frustrating. Because now your backup safeties are Tony Adams and Ashton Davis backing up Jordan Whitehead you trust. And I like LaMarcus Joyner. He hasn't played a full season since 2015, number one. He's much older now. He's coming off a year in which he played 1 game, not even. He got hurt in the first game against Carolina last year. So you're relying on him after playing 1 game last year, not playing an entire season since 2015, relying on him at the age that he is at to stay healthy, or else Ashton Davis and Tony Adams are going to have to step up and make plays at the safety spot. And I'll tell you what, I would love to see Will Parks and Jason Pinnock on the practice squad. I don't think so. I think if anything, you might see Will Parks on the practice squad. I don't think you'll see Jason Pinnock, which really stinks. Draft pick last season. And another thing, too, is he could play corner, too. He could play safety. He can kind of do both of those. So other teams are going to be interested in that. Other teams are going to like the depth. I just don't get it. The Jets had serious talent. Like, look at the safety room. Joyner, Whitehead, Will Parks, Jason Pinnock. That's a good safety room. And yet you go with Tony Adams and Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis, who multiple people said was basically done. It was only a matter of time until they cut him. And they keep him. And he's shown you nothing. And if you want to talk about the speed and athleticism, great. What has he done in the 23 games in the 2 years that he's played with us? What has he done? Other than miss tackles, take terrible routes, and do backflips, and all that. Great, he could do all that. What else has he done? Sometimes his speed hurts him. because he sprints 100 miles an hour at these guys. The guys take a step to the left and he misses them. He's always going for the ankles, too. He's always running around like he's got ants in his pants and his hair's on fire. Bad decision, I think, in my opinion. Again, there's guys out there. Ravens safety out there. Jaquiski Tart, I think's his name. From I know that's his name. I probably botched the pronunciation. I know Tart, that's an easy last name to pronounce. Jaquiski Tart out of San Francisco got cut by Philly. He's out there. Could the Jets pick him up? Again, the Jets do have the 4th spot on the waiver claim. So they're going to have dibs on some high-name players. They are. And the Jets, Douglas has done some good things on the waiver wire. They picked up JFM. They picked up Braxton Berrios. They've gotten Quincy Williams. All those guys now. JFM a starter. Quincy Williams a starter. Braxton Berrios playing a big role in the slot as the backup behind Moore. Also in the kick return game. Coming off a career year in which they extended him. So Douglas has made some moves on the waiver wire, has made some moves where he's picked guys up and they've turned into something. He has. You got to give that to him. So again, it's not time to panic, but it's definitely interesting what the Jets did today. Not having a backup slot corner. Your 2 backup safeties are probably not trying to be mean. Again, I'm not at practice every day, but from what I saw, it didn't look like Davis and Tony Adams were any better than Pinnock and Parks. You can make the argument you got rid of your 2. You can make the argument you got rid of, obviously, LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan White are starters. You got rid of you're keeping your 2 worst safeties on your roster, and you got rid of some of your best safeties on your roster. It's the truth. You can make that argument. It's not even really an argument. It's kind of the truth. It's kind of facts. So I don't get it. I don't really understand. It's frustrating because you feel for Will Parks and Pinnock, 2 guys that just did so much this training camp. They put in so much work. They did so many good things, and yet they still don't find their way on the roster. And it's even more frustrating as if they get claimed. Because if they get thrown on the practice squad, you're like, all right, they're there. They're still with the team. Like, they're just on the practice squad. You're right there. If you need them, you pick them up, you bring them on. If they get picked up elsewhere, it's like, that's done. And if they go on and play a big role on another team, you play the what-if game then. I'm not saying Jason Pinnock's going to turn into Ed Reed, but, I mean, he had potential to be a solid player, and he showed that. Again, he's not turning into Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed. I'm not saying that. Where he's going to go to another team, win a Super Bowl, be Defensive Player of the Year, and be the greatest of all time. I'm not saying that, but he had a lot of potential, and he had a lot of hope, and you saw a lot of those things during camp. Got some reps with the first team and all that stuff, which obviously at this point means nothing because you got reps with the first team and still gets cut. It's just frustrating because like these guys, like they made impacts. They did everything they needed to do, and yet you cut them for 2 guys that you just don't trust. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't trust Ashtyn Davis, and I understand it's a feel-good story. I don't trust any Tony Adams. I don't trust him. He hasn't shown you anything, really. So, that's how I see it. Mims didn't get traded, which I think we were all kind of expecting that, where he was either going to get traded or not get traded. He still could get traded. You kind of hope that Calvin Jackson catches on to the practice squad, because if Mims does get traded, then you kind of have your replacement there at the 6th receiver spot. Out of all the spots, though, really it was the wide receiver core that's not surprising. I mean, tight end's not surprising either. I think some people maybe were surprised to see Trayvon West go. I'm not. He's always hurt, and he doesn't catch. He's good at blocking, but doesn't do anything else. You look at the defensive tackle, the defensive line, there's some questions there. You go to the secondary, there's a lot of questions. The linebackers, not so much who they kept, just the amount of players they kept. They only kept 4 linebackers. And again, I like Quan Alexander. I think he's going to play a big role, but he's got an injury history. Okay? And you like C.J. Mosley, but he's up there in age. And again, another dude, too, that in his first year with the Jets only played 2 games. So there are some injury concerns there, too, and you got 1 backup. And Jamian Sherwood, who's very solid. I like him. He's much better than Najaldine, who was probably the other linebacker that would have made it. I mean, they also got rid of DQ Thomas and Dale Sean Phillips, who I think we all kind of knew were gone. I think it was only between Sherwood and Najaldine. And Sherwood had a good camp. I could recall the one game against Atlanta where he had a really nice blow in the red zone. He made a couple big hits. Najaldine, too, was a guy that when Sherwood was out there this year in preseason, like he made some plays. Najaldine, it looked like he was just kind of going through the motions. It was almost like Sherwood, in a way, like took this off season. He kind of learned the game more, and it seemed like he was more of in a rhythm. It was almost like Najaldine was still kind of like learning and kind of processing what's going on. That's kind of what the feeling I got. Could just be me, But I think they made the right decision there, but they're only rolling with one backup. And Sherwood's second-year player, can you really fully trust him to go out and make plays if the injury does happen? So there are some questions there. But, again, not going to sit here and crush Douglas. Not going to sit here. There's some fans today saying, oh, this is why Douglas shouldn't be the GM. No, that's crazy. That's stupid. If you think that today, that's ridiculous. But there is time where you can criticize him. Today's the day to criticize Douglas. He made a couple moves that are questionable. If they end up on the practice squad, great. You're just one little meet in my office call up away from being on the active roster, right? But Ashton Davis might be one missed tackle away from getting released during the year, and Will Parks is just one call away. Jason Pinnock's just one call away from getting brought back. But if you lose these guys, then you're relying on these depth. You're going to get some of these guys back, but you're going to lose a lot of these young guys too. Again, this is the first time in a long time Jets are cutting players that are going to get picked up elsewhere. And you can make the argument that, it's because you're going to cut players that are talented. I get that. I get that argument. I understand where people are coming from, where it's like the argument of, it's the argument where it's like, you're probably going to see surprising cuts because there's a lot. You're going to have to cut a lot of talent. So you're going to see a lot of talent go. So you shouldn't be frustrated if you cut the talent, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, for example, Will Parks. He's talented. He showed you a lot of good things. You might have to cut him, even though he's really talented because you have a lot of depth at the position. You're telling me Ashton Davis and Tony Adams are better than Will Parks and Jason Pinnock? No way. I don't care if these coaches are up close with these. There's no way. There's no way Ashton Davis had a better full body of work than Pinnock or Parks. There's no way. No way. Even in the preseason games, Parks and Pinnock were making some plays. Parks had a couple really big hits. Ashton Davis, you didn't hear from him. You didn't. I don't know. I just don't get it. So, again, you got the roster. You got more waiver claims today. Who's going to be put on the practice squad, all that stuff. And you hope some of these guys fall through and go to the practice squad. But there's going to be a lot of guys on this list that are going to be hot commodities. There are. And that's how I see it. So, look at the Giants. They have 3 safeties. We'll get into the Giants right now. They have 3 safeties. Could they be looking at Pinnock as another safety option? It's possible. Pinnock will be out there. They also got to see Pinnock up close when they did the joint practices. Could they be looking at Will Parks? It's also possible. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air right now. But we'll go to the Giants, and not as many surprises, I think, with the Giants than there were with the Jets. And I don't mean this in a negative way. But I think it's because the Jets have a little bit more talent. So you're going to see a lot more guys, a lot more bigger names that you're like, wow, he got cut, than with the Giants. And again, that's not in a negative way. It's just the Jets are a little further ahead in the rebuild. And I don't think it's not like I'm being biased. I shouldn't be biased for surprising cuts. I mean, you know how I feel right now. I'm pretty frustrated with some of the cuts we made. Frustrated and just confused. But the Giants, there weren't a ton of crazy cuts where you were like really shocked. I mean, you go down the list. The quarterback being, Davis Webb being the guy that got cut. I think he's a guy that, again, was almost like in a Chris Streveler spot. Jets are holding on to 3 quarterbacks, Wilson, Flacco, and White, but he was in a Streveler spot. He had a very good training camp, but at the end of the day, they're not going to cut Tyrod Taylor. They're not. They're just not going to do it, and it's smart to do it. Jets aren't going to cut Mike White. They're not going to do it. Maybe Streveler will catch on to the practice squad. Maybe Davis Webb will catch on to the practice squad. I could definitely see that being the possibility. He's been kind of bounced around the league. He's been with the Giants, been with the Bills, been with the Jets, been with all the New York teams. So he might end up on the practice squad. But again, they're not going to cut Tyrod Taylor to put Davis Webb on the roster. Then you go to the running backs now. If Tyrod Taylor's injury was more severe, which it doesn't seem like it is, which is a good thing, then you make a case. But there's no way. They're just going to roll with Tyrod Taylor, which is a smart move. Running backs was definitely a little interesting. Gary Brightwell made the team. So your 4 running backs were Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Antonio Williams. No surprise there. Gary Brightwell made the team. Jashawn Corbin. Jashawn Corbin. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Got cut, which was interesting because him and Gary Brightwell were kind of battling for the final spot, and both of them showed some promise where it was like, Corbin had some good plays, Brightwell had some good plays, preseason, all that stuff. So it was definitely a little bit of surprise there, but I don't think it's a huge surprise. I think, if anything, that was a little bit of a surprise just considering the fact that both of them put together a good camp, and both of them, were making some plays, especially in the preseason. Got to get my notes back up here. So, you go to Gary Brightwell, he makes the team, and again, it's good. They had a lot of depth, and they added up. They have a lot of depth. They have some depth. They at the running back spot, they had 5 solid running backs. Corbin ends up getting cut. I think, given the fact Corbin was undrafted free agent, came in, had a good camp, they rolled with Brightwell, and kind of the low risk, high, that kind of the lower, you're bright, Corbin would have been the higher risk, higher reward. High risk is you take a chance on an undrafted free agent, he doesn't play well, and things kind of go south. So your receiver group, there's really no surprise. They go roll with 7 receivers. It's Wandale Robinson, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Richie James, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, David Sills. Those are your 7 receivers. The only surprise would be Darius Slayton. There are some fans out there that think Darius Slayton should have been cut. There were some rumors that maybe he'll get traded. I guess we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I don't disagree with the whole Darius Slayton thing. I know a lot of fans wanted him cut. I guess we'll see. I mean, could he be traded? It's a possibility. He didn't get cut. They hold on to 7. No surprises there in the receiving corps. Galladay again. There was that thing that Dable said about maybe not being not really being non-committal on Galladay, but he stays put. Not really surprising there. Your tight end group's not really surprising either. Now, they did get rid of Alex Bachman and C.J. Board. C.J. Board, who's played a role for the team, Alex Bachman had a very good camp. So, some people are a little frustrated that they didn't get rid of Slayton and didn't bring in a guy like a Bachman who had a great camp. I think he led the NFL, was it catches or yards in the preseason? He had a very good preseason. So, maybe a little bit of surprise there, similar to the Jets. It's like, I guess at the end of the day, they're trying to trade Slayton. If they trade Slayton and Bachman, clears waivers, they might pick him up. Same thing with the Jets. If they end up trading Mims and Calvin Jackson clears waivers, they might pick him up. So, Jets and Giants both have some exciting, younger receivers that had some good camps that they had to move on from just because it's a numbers game. Tight ends, you have Daniel Bellinger, Chris Mariak, and Tanner Hudson. You cut Austin Allen, undrafted free agent. So, Giants, I would assume, are going to be active on the waiver wire because that is not a very good tight end group. Not at all. That I would assume they're going to be active, picking somebody else up. Just not a crazy amount of depth behind Bellinger and Bellinger himself. Do you fully trust him? We'll see. You go to the offensive line, no real surprises. Andrew Thomas, Shane Lemieux, John Feliciano, Mark Glowinski, and Evan Neal. You don't really have a backup right tackle, or that's kind of what it is. But Devery Hamilton as the backup could be there. Jamil Douglas got cut, which it seemed as if he was having a good camp, but they kind of seemed later on in camp to favor Max Garcia. So Douglas was a guy that, we'll see if he clears waivers. If he does, I would definitely think the Giants could very well pick him up. But other than that, not many surprises on the offense line. You go to the defense, and there really wasn't many surprises in the defense. My biggest surprise was the linebacker spot, personally, was Quincy Rochet. This is a guy last year that played 14 games for the team, had a couple sacks, I think 2.5 to be exact, played pretty well, was young, rookie year last year, showed a lot of promise. Again, I think this is all about the new regime, where you're going to see guys that played roles last year on the team that are going to get cut, or got cut, or not going to play big roles. I mean, look at Slayton. He's played a big role in the Giants the past couple seasons. There's been rumors about him maybe getting cut. He didn't, but could he get traded? Again, this is all the new regime. I was very, very surprised to see Quincy Rochet get cut yesterday. I was. When I saw his name pop up in the cuts, I was very surprised. And O'Shawn Simmons, they seemed to favor him, again, during camp, but especially later in camp. It seemed like he had kind of the upper hand. And again, another guy where new regime, they felt move on from Quincy Rochet, although he played a pretty solid role last year, and they go with Simmons there, kind of the backup edge. Other than that, not really any surprise. They are holding on to a lot of edge defensive guys. That's kind of the way Wink Martindale does things. They're holding on to 11 total line, 5 defensive line, and then you got like 6 edges. So they're holding on to a lot of guys up front. They are 11, which so are the Jets, but both teams decided to kind of hold on to a lot of guys. I was surprised to see Rochet. Other than that, not a ton of surprises in the secondary. Linebackers as well. Blake Martinez, Connor Coughlin, Tate Crowder. Tate Crowder's been an excellent story. Mystery relevance, playing a role on this team. You go to the cornerback. You don't have a backup behind Darnay Holmes, which is, I guess, the one thing, another thing where maybe they go look for another corner. The cornerbacks that they cut were Zion Gilbert, Darren Evans, Khalil Dorsey, Harrison Hand were the corners. Some of the other DBs, Elijah Griffin, Yusuf Corker. So, I could definitely assume one of those guys will clear. Do they put him on the have a backup, practice squad there because you're only rolling with 5 corners. But it would be interesting. Now you're rolling with legitimately 5 corners. The Jets are rolling with 6, but only 5. So both teams do have that little bit of that hole where do you pick up another corner to fill in that, spot where there's no backup, Jets being the slot spot. And you go to the safeties, and it's interesting for the Giants because similar to the Jets, and it's not, in the Giants, they cut Nate Meadors, and they cut Trent Thompson. And those aren't surprising cuts in a way, but they're only rolling with 3 safeties. Julian Love, Xavier McKinney, and Dan Belton. So you don't have you only have 1 backup for 2 guys. So similar to the Jets, where you have questions at the safety spot, not so much because of the depth, because of the talent. For the Giants, it's the depth. You kind of wonder, do they go out and sign somebody else? I would assume they would. I would assume the Giants go out and sign somebody else. Could Pinnock be on their list? Could Will Parks be on their list? It's definitely possible. So the safety spot's interesting. And then your special teams, Graham Gano, Jamie Gillian, and then Casey Kreider. So not a ton of surprises with the Giants. Not a ton. Again, not a knock on the Giants. I just think there was a lot more depth with the Jets where there was going to be some, even when you just saw the cuts come through, it was going to be some names that were having good camps. You're kind of like, wow, he got cut. With the Giants, it was more, I think the big surprise for me was Quincy Rochet. That was a big surprise to me. And they're holding on to 3 safeties. I would not be surprised if you see a guy like a Jason Pinnock over with the Giants. I wouldn't be. That's just how I am. I wouldn't not be surprised. So it'll be interesting. So that's the Jets and the Giants 53-man roster. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll see what moves go down today as well. As you know, I got the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast that I do on Apple. So any Jet news, I'll upload that on there. We'll see today, who goes on the practice squad, who gets claimed, who goes unclaimed, what do the Jets do with, the safety spot? Do they roll with that? We'll see. So rosters right now at 53, but still more things can happen. So we'll see how it all plays out over the next couple days as we get closer and closer to week 1 against the NFL season. All right, so let's get to the baseball today. We got the Rangers, Astros, Brewers, Pirates, Giants, Padres, Orioles, Guardians, Reds, Cardinals, Marlins, Rays, Nationals, A's, Blue Jays, Cubs, Tigers, Mariners, Braves, Rockies, Twins, Red Sox, White Sox, Royals, and the Diamondbacks, Phillies. And as for today, you got the Yankees, Angels, or actually we'll start with the Mets. Mets, Dodgers tonight. Tyler Anderson on the mound. He's 13-2 with a 2.69 ERA. Mets got Jacob deGrom on the mound. He's 3-1 with a 2.15 ERA, over under 6.5. Mets come into this game 82-48. Dodgers come into this game 90-38. First team and only team right now to 90 wins. Today, 7:10 Eastern, MLB Network SNY. It's going to be a fun game. Tyler Anderson, Jacob deGrom. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Looking forward to that. Yankees, Angels tonight. Yankees come into tonight's game 79-51. Angels come into tonight's game 56-74. Yankees got Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 10-6 with a 3.31 ERA. And the Angels have Patrick Sandoval on the mound. He's 4-9 with a 3.05 ERA. Over-under set at 7.5 tonight, 9:38 Eastern. You can find it on, hopefully yes. Yesterday was on Prime Video. Prime Video is terrible. It's terrible. The streaming stuff's terrible. Terrible. It's behind. It glitches. It's not good. So, anyway, let's get to fantasy baseball. In my main league, I'm currently losing 78-49. I made a roster move yesterday that I probably shouldn't have. So I put Tony Gonsolin on the IL, and with that, I had a spot that was open. So I picked up a pitcher. I picked up Matt Manning, and I was debating between him and Whitlock, and I picked up Matt Manning, who had a couple good starts in a row. Got me negative 19 points because he played up against Seattle. And that was my biggest issue, was him against Seattle. How would he pitch? And Seattle's a good team. They got a good guys on that team. Good roster, good hitting team. They crushed him. Got me negative 19. So I dropped him today, picked up Marco Gonzalez. I got to figure out a way. Gonsolin should only miss 2 starts, so he'll be back. But in between that time, I got to find a way to glue together something with my pitching where I got to find some stable guy. Because right now it's up and down. And I wish this Tony Gonsolin thing would have happened earlier so then the trade deadline didn't pass. Because now in fantasy baseball, all you got is the waivers. It's all you got to improve your team. And as for my main league, Marco Gonzalez is the only guy going today. As for my main league, I'm also losing 62-58. I've got Joe Musgrove on the mound. and my other league. My main league, I believe, only Marco Gonzalez. He's going up against Detroit. So I figured, look, he's got 3.97 ERA. He's not a phenomenal pitcher, but he's going up against Detroit. So you expect him to pitch pretty well against a Tigers team that's atrocious. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's frustrating when you... It's the most frustrating thing in sports is when you go and pick, or fantasy sports is when you pick somebody up and they just stink. And you weren't gonna pick, and you were thinking about picking them up at first. You pick them up and they just stink. It's the worst feeling ever. And I had that feeling yesterday where you pick up Matt Manning. He was doing well. You were debating on picking him up, and then he struggles. He stinks. And it's sometimes you want to pick these guys up. You don't end up picking them up, and then they pitch 8 innings and shut it out in 12 Ks and just dominate. Wasn't the case yesterday for Matt Manning. So that will do it for another episode of the BSN podcast. Another good one in the books. Tomorrow, AFC North standings tomorrow as we continue to go throughout the NFL, leading up until Thursday Night Football next week. Bills, Rams should be good. We get closer and closer and closer to the NFL season. And with that, you get closer and closer to October baseball. So that will do it. Enjoy the last day of August before we hit the month of September. And that will do it. As always, hope you enjoyed it. Or as always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.